What's up everyone, it's Diego with Lister's Notes. Today we're going to be talking about the new album from Uncommon NASA. This one's called Written at Night. Uncommon NASA is a New York rapper, producer, and audio engineer who definitely resides in the more alternative realms of hip-hop. He's definitely a super obscure artist, but from what I've seen, he's a genuine guy. He has a lot of care for music and hip-hop and culture and art, and he's actually a great follow on Twitter. Talks a lot about hip-hop culture, about progressive rock, stuff like that. He has a knack for producing pretty unique beats, and his rapping style is sort of a abstract spoken word type of thing. And this album here is the first project that I've heard from NASA that's completely produced, rapped, and I think mastered all by himself. And when you really think about it, it's sort of like this is his truest artistic expression. Like, this album is really him and his style and a representation of what he does and what he brings to the world of hip-hop. And just the idea of doing all of that on a single project is an insane accomplishment. You know, I definitely respect the hell out of it. And the attention to detail and care for his craft is so evident on this album, not only when it comes to the beats, but also creating a concept. This concept basically describes what it's like for an artist to go through an all-nighter. But point being, he essentially cataloged the different emotions, thoughts, and ideas that went through his head. And I really liked how he used the sense of time. He went from 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and there was midnight as well before that. And it sort of allowed us to see how his thought process, how his ideas, how his emotions would progress and change throughout the night. I think as far as a concept goes, what NASA is doing here is super interesting. It definitely makes the lyrics worth reading into, worth paying special attention to. And I have to say, I like a lot of the features on here. They help with that concept, which is a good thing. I do wish there was more rapping from NASA himself, but the feature list here is so impressive, and they all give great performances. NASA seemed to pick rappers who have somewhat similar styles to his own, so expect a lot of verses from alternative and abstract hip-hop artists. Guilty Simpson comes through on Compass with a really good verse. He has a lot of attitude, and I liked when he's talking about having to drink cognac and self-medicate almost just to stay awake, and I took that as like a late-night artist trying to push through and get his work done. And Barry McLean, she delivers a great hook on Extra Lives, and the vocals are just a nice standout and contrast on this album. Her vocals provide something just melodic and warm, which contrasts the generally nocturnal, atmospheric vibe of this album's just sound in general. And she's the only female vocalist here, so it really does stand out how beautiful her voice sounds in contrast with everything else. That song also features Open Mike Eagle, who brings his usual clever and wordy style, and I sort of liked the political rant he went on through the middle of the track. I thought it was pretty interesting, and to me it really fit in with the concept as well, because it seemed like late night thoughts. You're kind of like woozy, you're tired, you can't think right, but you know certain things about the world that bother you. And when you have those late night thoughts, those things that bother you are almost expanded in your mind. And Open Mike Eagle was sort of just attacking the things that bothered him, which I thought was really cool. I do think it ties into the concept. Maybe I'm over analyzing, but regardless, it was a good verse. Also, the title track here has some great performances from Quelle Chris and Billy Woods. Throughout this album, the flows are all on point, even if they may seem unorthodox in comparison with typical mainstream hip-hop. But the lyricism, the deliveries, the flows just provide so much entertainment. And I'll touch a little bit more on the lyrics after I talk about the beats here. Now, NASA really does his thing with these beats. I can honestly say that I like all of them. I really love the piano sounding sample on the song God's Aim. That might be the most satisfying sound on this entire album. The song Small Change is 2 a.m. has this really dope sample, super catchy. The song itself is actually a pretty punchy track, has a nice beat, a nice groove to it, and has this satisfying like alien video game twinkling sound that reminds me of Galaga or something. And I really like the tremolo effect on the bass on the song The Paper. instrumentation, which also has another set of punchy drums and actually a really nice horn inflection, but it kind of reminds me of Pengu. Not as an insult, that's just what it reminds me of. And I have to admit, I was a bit nervous about the production on this album when I heard the first single, which was the title track. I loved the song, but it is such an ethereal, moody beat. And I worried that if this is the single, this has to be the punchiest track, but I was completely wrong with that. And instead, it sort of ends up being a wind down from the rest of this album. It's full of these sour drones over a lumbering beat, and everything about it has this sleepy nocturnal vibe. And actually, I will say a dark, nocturnal, atmospheric type of vibe shows up throughout this album, which makes sense with the concept. It's a nighttime sort of album, and it does have that kind of vibe. And I also liked on that title track the lyrics where NASA's talking about seeing the sun for the first time. NASA expresses this by saying like the suns were 2 for the price of 1, as in he saw the sun twice in one day because he worked through the night, but that's besides the point. To me, this song not only represents the finality of that late night grind that these artists are going through, but it seems like NASA wanted to compile a lot of the emotions and just the general idea of writing an album throughout the night in this song, and then at the same time sort of express the feeling of finality once it's finally done, once you're past this stretch. Because much of this album in terms of lyrics just seems like a conscious stream of thought, non-stop wave of emotions and ideas throughout the night, which makes sense because a lot of underground artists have to work a job as well as make their music. Admittedly, this album can be tough to understand word for word as you listen through it, but I don't think you necessarily need to. Part of the enjoyment of this album for me was picking out lines that I started to understand, and then just knowing the concept helped me slowly piece together what's going on here. But I do feel like the central concept isn't built on you understanding each song. Each song is just a representation of a point in time within that concept. And honestly, just analyzing the lyrics and listening to the beats and the flows and all that, this album is just an entertaining listen for me. I really enjoyed it a lot. And I do think a lot of hip-hop fans will as well, especially if they like their bars a little wordy. I do recommend checking this album out. It is an 89 out of 100 for me. I think NASA did his thing here. It's worth a listen. If you're a hip-hop fan, give it a shot, honestly. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think of this album in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video.